quick review for Train Dreams because I saw it last night and I thought it was very good. I can see why I got nominated, and then I also can see why some critics want, like, when you look it up, the film will mention, things that people raved about, and one thing, like the good and bad, and one of the bads was that it's very slow, and I can agree with that. It's a very slow movie. And then someone said maybe uneventful. This film, I guess, I would agree. I did feel uneventful in the film, like, because when you hear about him, he lost the family, then he sees the common, right, and he's like, maybe that will give him a sense of purpose, a new sense of something to look forward to in life. But I mean, that's a pretty tragic thing to lose, your whole family. That's pretty bad, is it? It's pretty. And I think maybe that's why. What do you call? What was I thinking of in my head? I think that may even be why. What's it called? The lady. What was her name? Miss Thompson. That was her name. I think her name was Miss Thompson. The lady that first was a forestry ranger, because when he tells her that, you can tell maybe when they first meet each other, I was getting the vibe that maybe she kind of liked him, right? Maybe she kind of nice, and that maybe she would have said something to him, and then, but I like that he's the one that later, because he said, "Oh, I was walking by and I just happened, I happened to cross a path, happened to cross upon your what's it called? What was I thinking of in my head? Came across your tower, so I thought I'd stop by and just check on you, see how you are." And they had the conversation together, right? And we learned that she, what was I gonna say about her? Oh my gosh, what was I gonna say? She lost her husband, right? She also experienced loss, so she has something she can relate to him on, that she can connect there with. She also experienced a loss. She lost her husband, and that's in contrast to him. He lost his wife and daughter, right? He lost a family. She lost a husband. and unlike when she says hermit in the woods, we're both kind of hermits. That's partially why she took up that job, because it'll be solitude, alone. Her job is to, and she even mentions this, like, I get to watch the clouds, how they change, document the growth in trees. Like, like her job, it's a slow, I guess maybe somewhat melancholy for some people, right? Boring work in some sense like that. It's beautiful sights, but it's also very slow, and but you get paid for it. It's like, this is nice. This is something that I don't mind doing, and I get paid for it. She's like kind of a scientist type person, isn't she? She was a nurse and I like that, because this is World War. I think they said the Great War. The narrator says the Great War. It doesn't say World War One. I don't know if they say World War One. I think maybe. I think in the film they did mention the Great War, which is like the first name, the name that was known as the Great War. Now it's World War One. We have World War Two, but before then it was just the Great War. Was it? It was the first, which is kind of funny. World War Two often gets, the first one gets overshadowed by the second one. But there was a first one. the humans had a first sort of major global conflict. And then came the second one, the second major global conflict, everybody fighting. But then I think with World War One, it was mostly European powers, I want to say. Maybe it wasn't so much. World War Two brought in the Asian Pacific theater, right? And there was a North African theater. And as opposed to World War One, I don't recall there were any, the word theaters over there. Although, during World War One, or not during, but even before, like, there were civil unrest and like all around the world. So it's, I don't know. There's always unrest though. So I guess you can't pinpoint it to one exact place, because there's always going to be unrest and fighting and stuff. But what was I thinking in my head? I was thinking of something. Train Dreams. That was sad when we saw that guy. We learned in the credits his name was Fu Shen. It was sad to see this guy, because he talked about how when he had the job, I think it was the railroad job, even the logging job, you see the faces of the men. There are some men that are different from others, because he mentions even the railroad, even the logging job, how you get transplants. You get guys coming in from all over the place, And they mentioned how this guy, our guy, Robert Grainer, how he met people from all over the world, the country, people from different walks of life, so on and so forth, through his, just his work. But what was I thinking in my head? I was thinking of something. Oh my God, what was I thinking of? I was thinking of something. With the thing, what was I thinking? What was popping in my head? Oh yeah, the guy, he mentioned you met guys from as far as Shanghai, places he never heard of, and he mentioned Shanghai, because when he living in the northern United States, the Pacific Northwest region of the U.S., to hear about a place called Shanghai, it's like, oh, where's that? I don't know what that is. Oh, that sounds like it's super far away. I have no idea where you're coming from with that. But what was I thinking in my head with Robert Grainer? Character. I was thinking of something. What was I thinking of? Thinking of something in my head. What was I thinking of? What was I thinking? I'm thinking of something. I can't quite find it in my head now. What I was thinking about. What was I thinking of? And this review is going to be it's going to be funny because it's this long pause because I'm trying to think. I don't know why I'm losing my train of thought. When Robert dies, and we get to see the scene. We don't see when he dies, but we see the scene of the cabin, which makes me wonder. I hope the dog was outside because he dies in his sleep. So if his dog was in his house, and then presumably the dog could just eat him. I guess at that point, fuck it, you gotta do, because the dog can't open the door. So shit. I mean, that poor dog. I mean, it was like a corgi. To me, it looked like a corgi type. It was nice when that shop owner guy went to, because I guess he had figured out, maybe he had learned that his family had died. His family had passed away. And, but the shopkeeper, he actually comes out to where Robert is to camp out with him, hunt with him. I guess, just to give him some company and to help him heal from this traumatic, and what he's going through right now. Which is quite traumatic. I mean, this is a loss of his family. This is because he had no purpose. He had no purpose in the life. But then he met this lady. It's actually kind of cute. She actually went up to him, and I like the narrator even said, I guess because this is probably true, right? Women in these days to go up to the man and introduce themselves, to be so forthcoming, it probably was kind of rare. It wasn't like a common thing. So it's like she came up and she introduced herself like women did that. That's what the narrator said. They're like, wow, God, you're doing this, lady. But that was cute. I like that she did that, and they built a life together. I wonder, maybe we got some for background. There was points in the film where I don't quite recall what they might have said. And I know he's an orphan. He has no family. They actually said in the film he never met his parents. He never learned who they were. So he really had nobody to go back to, nobody to lean on, really, is it? This character of ours, he was truly alone to a great extent, and especially after he lost his family. I mean, when he had his family, he had a purpose, he had a reason to live, something to look forward to, and he had a daughter. He had a little girl. I forgot what the little girl's. I think it was Jessie. I don't remember what the daughter's name was, but he had a little girl, Jessie. That was not this old man character that he worked with, and he halfway through the film he becomes deceased. He actually gets hit by a tree branch. A tree branch falls and hits him in the head. He doesn't die right away immediately, but it probably maybe gave him a concussion, maybe some internal bleeding or something. Because it mentions after the tree branch hit him in the head, he was, I think it was a couple of days, he was sort of a little goggy. He was forgetting his name. So it screwed him up. That tree branch hit him pretty good. That he didn't recover from that, which is something that, you know, in modern day, maybe he would have recovered from it, but in this one, we're like the early 20th century, we're the 1900s, early 1900s. Robert dies in 1968, I think it was. I think he dies 1968 in his log cabin. And but that was a cool thing in the film to see him go from like the wagon buggy in like the olden days to a more modern period that's more up to our modern period, where the cars on the road and the roads are paved, and how somebody born in those early hundreds, you know, how they come up into this era, and how, you know, how everything changed. I think that's even a theme of the film. It's like the rapid changing, how things are just rapidly changing and evolving. And they mentioned the narrator, it says, like, you know, he never put a telephone to the ear before. He never, what was another thing Robert never put a telephone to his ear. They said he never purchased a firearm. He never brought a gun. His wife had a gun. I guess, I'm assuming they had joint custody of the gun. His wife did have a rifle. There was a scene. But you know what? Also, somebody mentioned it. I was reading the continuity, and it's called Train Dream. So there are dream sequences. It's like when he gets the little girl outside and he rescues her and then her leg's broken. That probably was a dream sequence, because when he wakes up, she's gone. But he says he searches the woods. I think he searches the woods and the town, maybe even some nearby towns. They're probably inquiring about her, and like nobody knows who this bitch is. So, you know, that tells you, like, okay, they can't be. It has to be he imagining that, because there's no trace. There's no way. There's no trace, right? And it's I mean, he even says when he's in the woods cutting trees. And this is like for his own benefit, like to make firewood and stuff. He can hear what's it called? You can hear like his daughters laughing in the distance, things like that. But what was I thinking of in my head with this film? What was I gonna say? Oh my god, what was I thinking of with this film? I was thinking of something. This movie, Robert Grainer. This was a really nice movie. It had a nice melancholy. It was sad. I would say it's a sad movie, honestly. It's a beautiful film. It's about, like, the, you know, I would say like a human condition type film. And one of the facts that, you know, we end this film with no satisfying. For me, I can see why people said it's not satisfying, but that's also like, that's what makes it even more human, is that the reality of life is you can lose something and you don't get it back, or you lose your purpose, you don't actually find it. You live your whole life. Although the narrator says that, you know, Robert takes this plane ride for $4. When he goes to Spokane one day, I guess he's walking around, and he goes to Spokane, the downtown, but he actually also explores around the area, and he goes on the plane ride. $4 for the plane ride, 1968, right? And this was in the spring of '68, because he dies in the fall. He dies in November, so this is sometime in the spring. So he lives through the summer. All right, he dies before it gets cold. Right when it gets cold, is it? I mean, November probably gets a little chilly up there. But what was I thinking in my head with Robert? What was I thinking about him? He said when he was in the plane and he just, you know, let go and felt, you know, I guess he just sort of, he lets go and he just feels like the plane going up and down, and feeling how the, you know, the just sort of taking in the feeling of being in the air. It all makes sense to him, whatever that sort of entails, what that means to Robert, right? But he feels a sense of, I guess, completeness, like, I guess. And so he does die happy, I guess, ultimately, after being sad for so long. He does die happy. Peacefully. That's what the narrator says, dies peacefully in his sleep. And it's, you know, I like this scene where we see the cabin and it's been overgrown with grass. I think we see like his body is being consumed back by nature again. It's actually kind of beautiful. It's quite beautiful, the deceasedness of the scene. But I like this film. This was a nice film, Train Dreams. And thank you for listening.